I'd like to introduce our program for the evening, Even the Earth is Bipolar, Part 2. Curved space comedy for people in no shape for the human condition. Our featured guest tonight is Greg Eisenberg. Can we all give him a round of applause? Welcome on the stage.
Woo. Check. Hello. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm sorry we're starting 15 minutes late, and to make it up to you, I'm going to cut 10 minutes off the show. I'll cut 5 more off for good behavior. You know, the 3 things that they say a comedian really wants from his physical environment is, 1, you don't want people worrying about whether they're getting a parking ticket. 2, drinks. You want drinks. You want drinks served out in the lobby and served in the venue as well. The 3rd thing that you want, and this might be a surprise, the 3rd thing that you really want is low ceilings. So, when my agent called me and said, we have a gig for you if you want it, but the parking is a problem, there's no alcohol allowed, and the ceiling, at least in terms of how it appears to the audience, is measured not in feet or meters, but in light years, I immediately said, I'll take it. Now, George Burns once wrote, a comedian just makes you laugh, but a humorist makes you laugh and think. And tonight, folks, I'm going to make you do all 3. Astrophysics, my old friend.
I've come to learn from you again what you have proven with experiments, what you have seen with your fine instruments, in the sky and the sea and the soil in the ground. It's so profound. I love the sound of science. What is this thing that we call light? What is the speed of its swift flight? Is it a thing that has mass at all? Is it a wave or a particle? Does space not obey the laws of geometry like you and me? On the stage of science, who said I do not know? Radiation makes you glow. You better keep it all in the ground. A better place for it cannot be found. And the words of Einstein are written in the chemistry halls. The future calls. This is the age of
Ow! Oh, well, for those of you who don't know me, which actually includes me on some levels, let me tell you and myself a couple things about myself. I am bi-coastal, bilingual, and... Oh, good, you're going to work with me. That's good. And bipolar. I mean, actually, I'm not bi-coastal. I've been kind of landlocked lately, and to say I'm bilingual is maybe a little bit of a stretch. And I've never been diagnosed as bipolar, but I love it. I totally connect with it. I would marry it. So if you're out there tonight, baby, please find me. I'm right here. I'm pretty famous on YouTube for wanting to be pretty famous on Facebook. I'm well known on Twitter for not having any followers on Instagram. And if you don't believe I'm an introvert, you can just ask my 20 best friends. You're here tonight, right? Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, my dear friends. You know I'm an introvert at heart. The truth is, I only do comedy part-time. Sometimes, to make ends meet, I do tragedy on the side. And tragedy, as a side gig, ain't as bad as you might think. Some people do it full time. And if you're out there, baby, please look the other way. I'm trying to keep it part-time. The English playwright Oscar Wilde said, there are really only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and the other is getting it. I think that's a little pessimistic, though, don't you think? I always try to suffer from the second one as much as I can. I think Oscar Wilde did, too. I like the little twist that Bertrand Russell put on it. He said that one of the important keys to happiness is not getting everything you want. I guess the idea is that doing without some things you enjoy sort of heightens your appreciation for it. Funny, I've noticed he's not that popular of a philosopher these days. For me, when it comes to certain vices these days, I'm taking a little break from doing without. I'm an economist. I just want to tell you a little bit more about myself. I studied natural resource economics, or something called ecological economics. In that field, you try to map out and study the exchanges of energy and matter between human economic systems and ecological natural systems. And as I think you know, a lot of great inputs come from ecological systems to help supplement human economic systems. A lot of waste and garbage comes out of the economic systems and back into nature. That's all you really need to know about that. Here's an example of something I learned while studying. The economy of Denver used to be based on gold extraction, right? For about 100 years, it was all about mining gold. The future economy of Denver is going to be based on marijuana sales. The good thing about that is the Denver Nuggets don't even have to change their name. Keeps costs on. It's good. It's good. That was something I studied for my macroeconomics class, and for microecon, I did a little case study of this Indian restaurant that was right around the corner from me in Cambridge. And I liked their food. I went there a lot for lunch. But over the years that I was there, they started losing business and eventually had to shut their doors. So I went in, I looked at their menu, I studied their pricing, I looked at their receipts to try to figure out, why did the Indian restaurant close? And do you know what I found out? It was its korma. So if you're an Indian restaurant, it's not enough to have good saag paneer or good chai. You have to have good korma. And I will admit, they had bad korma. You know, the owner of the restaurant was a very nice man from the state of Kerala, and I saw him when I was back there not long ago. He said, "So how is life in Colorado? Do you have a garden? Do you grow food?" And I looked at him for a second. That's interesting. Do I have a garden? Do I grow food? I looked at him and said, "You know, in Colorado, on the contrary, we don't grow food. We grow the munchies. We're upstream from food. We create the market for supermarkets. We created the market for this 2 a.m. 7-Eleven run." Anyway, now I have my own energy consulting practice. I don't work for the oil and gas industry. Don't worry. I'm just one of their regular customers. But I don't work for them. And frankly, I don't like being self-employed. The staff is lazy and the management sucks. Anyway, this is the 500th anniversary of the Galilean Revolution, the 100th anniversary of the Einsteinian Revolution, and the 1-year anniversary of me learning how to distort history and tell tall tales. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if I should talk about Galileo first, Einstein, or my writing coach. But speaking of coaches, I am looking for a new life coach if you know anybody. No experience needed. Let's talk about Einstein for a minute and his relationship with the clock. You see, Einstein was not happily married, and he waited many years for his wife, Milena, to give him a divorce. And that's when he realized time itself can slow down. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. It's true. Back in the early 1900s, a lot of the science community was preoccupied with the question of what is space and what is light. And the common knowledge at the time was that light is a wave, and just like sound waves need air, need a medium to travel through, light needs a medium to travel through as well. Newton conjectured that space is like an ether that creates a medium for light waves to travel through. Now, most of you probably know the story of Einstein looking back at the big clock tower in Bern at the end of the day when he was going home from work. He wondered, what would it be like to travel away on a beam of light? He wondered that a lot, actually. He and Milena weren't getting along that well. We all wonder that from time to time. And then he had this wonderful breakthrough moment. And the way I like to explain it, and I hope this helps, is, and Max, please correct me if I'm bending the truth too much. He realized if he sped off on a beam of light from the face of the clock tower right at the stroke of noon, the next beam of light that bounced off the clock tower, 1 second later, half a second later, a nanosecond later, it will never, ever catch up to the beam of light that he was riding. It will always trail behind. That means, he realized, if he looked back, the clock would always read noon, forever. Because the next beam of light would always be trailing behind. So his watch would still be ticking like normal for him, but looking back, time would have stopped. We're going to be riding on a beam of light later tonight, an experience for ourselves for how time comes to a halt. So just sit back, relax, keep your cell phones turned on. One of his colleagues, Niels Bohr, once said, "How wonderful that we have met with paradox, for now we have some hope of making progress." How wonderful that we have met with paradox, for now we have some hope of making progress. You know, I totally agree with him on the one hand, and on the other hand, I totally disagree with him. You know, I think about it a lot. Are contradictions just the product of language? And the contradictions in life drive me crazy. But for some reason, the paradoxes don't bother me a bit. You know, our minds don't like paradox. And this goes all the way back to Aristotle, back in ancient Greece, standing at the foot of the Acropolis. He wrote something that called the law of the excluded middle, which you probably learned about in middle school, but might not remember. It's the law that says, if something is true, it is not false. Okay? That's pretty heavy. Okay? And something is not false, it is true. Like there's no wiggle room at all, which is kind of tough for a non-committal guy like myself. In a logical argument, you can't say X is white and X is not white. But we all know we live in a world that's full of a lot more ambiguity than that. That won't do it all, Aristotle. Yeah, I'm white, but I'm also 6% Neanderthal. That was shocking to find out. Yeah, I love the earth, but on Sundays, I take Sunday drives. Yes, I'm aware of my own self-deceptions, but not all of them. So we're trained as an entire civilization to follow these terms of logic. Yet we know things are black and white and don't fit into the neat little boxes that we wish they would. And now that the old Newtonian point of view has been destroyed and completely replaced with a new understanding of the cosmos, in which we know things are uncertain, probabilistic, ambiguous, down to the atomic level, we have to stop thinking things are exactly as they appear. Yeah, well, my bank didn't buy that. Payment is due on the 1st. There's nothing ambiguous about that. Okay, jeez. My girlfriend didn't buy it either. She said, either you were talking to that other girl at the party or you weren't. I said, okay, technically I was talking to her, but I wasn't paying attention to what she was saying. It's got to count for something. You know, she didn't buy it either. Sigmund Freud believed that neurosis is the inability to cope with ambiguity. I think he was onto something with that one. The Indian philosopher Krishnamurti wrote, "It is a sign of poor health to be well adjusted to a sick society." Right? It is a sign of poor health to be well adjusted to a sick society. And man, am I glad I don't have that problem. Yeah. You guys who know me know that I'm telling no lie. The people who are well adjusted to the society are so, they get married, they buy houses, they have careers, they raise their children to be hardworking, honest people. I'd hate to be one of them. It is so much more of a sign of health, in this sick society, to be underemployed as long as you can. So, I don't know if my friends Elijah and Aaron are here. You guys here? Oh, they're right there. Oh my God. Don't listen to what your dad says. Oh, you guys are right there. Fly low and use the free Wi-Fi at coffee shops to read up on conspiracy theories. That's really healthy, thank you, Krishnamurti. Boulder, Colorado, thank you very much, was rated one of the happiest, most well-adjusted towns in the U.S. So, outside of rush hour, of course, during which it's every bit as bipolar as the Greyhound bus station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the dead of winter. It's also got someone from Tennessee out there, I see. Yes, who knows that well. It is also the most educated town in the U.S. by a big margin, too. I'm a little surprised those things go together. When you think of all the illness suffered by the great poets and mathematicians over the millennia, starting with Pythagoras in 750 BC, intelligence and mental health don't seem to go together. But ignorance isn't much better. I'm a poet of dreams, but my mind, so it seems, is unrigid in structure and weak in the seams. I'm an author of prose, but my pen as it flows misuses its word forms and smears as it goes. I'm a singer of tales, but my voice as it fails stutters in rhythm and confuses its scales. I'm a man of high lesson, but my soul in each session of trying to express itself is lost in its expression. Okay, your turn. What do you got? I'm a poet of dreams, but my mind, so it seems, is unrigid in structure and
filled with dreams,
weak in the seams. See how this side does. I'm an author of prose, but my pen, as it flows, misuses its word forms and nobody knows and smears as it goes. You're going to get this one. I know, I feel it. You didn't know there was a test that makes all the difference in the world. You would have been paying attention. I'm a singer of tales, but my voice, as it fails, stutters in rhythm and confuses. All right. I'm a man of high lesson, but my soul in each session of trying to express itself is lost in its expression. Okay, we're going to have to work on this a little bit, I think. I'm a man of high lesson, but my soul in each session of trying to express itself is... Yeah, lost in its expression. Max, let's get out of here. This is your cue. You're supposed to start singing. I'm a poet of dreams, but my mind, so it seems, is unrigid in structure and will plant the seed and eat the grain. There it is. Thank you very much. You know, since the dawn of philosophy, there's been a debate between those who believe in the forces of destiny and those who believe in the power of free will. Like, if humans have the free will to choose one way or another, then how can our fate be predetermined? Like, some of you are here tonight, for example, against your own will, which proves you have free will. Was it fate? I don't think so. Was it marital pressure? I don't know. Rabbis debated about this for centuries too. If God knows what is going to happen next, if destiny is somehow preordained or predetermined, do we really have free will? Well, one Roman emperor, the last good one, the Stoic Marcus Aurelius, said something beautiful. He said, "Submit to the fate of your own free will." I like that. Submit to the fate of your own free will. It's like, it's a cool way of blending the antagonistic ideas of free will versus destiny into one concept. He's saying you have free will. How you exercise it will create a kind of destiny in which then you will continue to exercise free will. And life is a combination of going back and forth between both. And there's kind of a resignation with the Stoics. Character is destiny. Well, exercising my free will cost me about $400 the other night. For some of us, free will can be pretty expensive, and way more expensive than destiny. In my other show, which is called Real Space Has Curves, I talk about the book Stumbling on Happiness by the Harvard professor Daniel Gilbert. He makes the claim that we are actually very poor at predicting what actions will or will not make us happy. Hence the title of his book, Stumbling Upon Happiness. He claims we distort our memories so much about what worked and didn't work in the past that we're often pretty bad at predicting what will actually make us happy in the future. So to that point, he's saying that when we do feel happy, it's often not because of our choices, but in spite of them. Now, in my book, which is coming out on Amazon in about 2 weeks, I say, you are in total control of your destiny, along with about 4,000 other people, half of whom you will never meet. It's true, right? Half of whom you will never meet, and hopefully only one of whom gave you herpes in college. The writer Sam Harris, who's very popular right now, goes around the country all the time saying that free will is just an illusion, that our brains and our nervous systems and our reactions are so wired that we are not actually exercising choice. And this idea is very popular these days. He writes, how can we be free, he puts it in quotes, how can we be free as conscious agents if everything that we consciously intend is caused by events in our brain that we do not intend and of which we are entirely unaware? We can't, he says. You know, if you ask me, he seems very motivated to go around the country espousing this idea. He seems very motivated to book flights, book cars, book hotel rooms, do TED Talks, sell books, go to more conferences, book more cars, sell more books, saying we don't have free will. I think even if you wanted to, even if you tried, I don't think you could stop him very easily from going around saying this. I don't believe things are predetermined, okay? I'm going to just take a stand right now. I guess it just wasn't my fate to be a determinist. If you laughed at that joke, I want to know you. I just want to know who you are, so come and talk to me. I just wasn't meant to be a determinist. I took that out of my book, but it just fit this thing. You might be bipolar, and so I will have a natural attraction to you. Now, I don't think anybody knows what's about to happen next or what's going to happen in 1,000 years, and I think we have a lot of free will. I'm a free spirit, but I'm raising my rate soon. The French mathematician Pascal, also from the 17th century, wrote, "Man is equally incapable of seeing the nothingness from which he emerges and the infinity in which he is engulfed." Man is equally incapable of seeing the nothingness from which he comes and the infinity in which he is engulfed. Do you ever feel that way? I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I think we can see the nothingness from which we emerged. There goes some right now. It's everywhere. It's even inside of us. There's more right here. Look, we, as I think most of you know, are mostly empty space. Atoms are very spacious. Very spacious. The nucleus of an atom were a tennis ball in my hand. The electrons would be 2 marbles 2.25 miles away, hovering over Wonderland Lake. And if it were a basketball instead of a tennis ball, the electrons would be down in Denver, not far from the Museum of Science where the smart electrons like to hang out. You get the picture. There's a lot of room in here. It was like Boulder 40 years ago. We are mostly nothing in some strange, humbling way, but we're connected with everything? No wonder we're bipolar. Maybe it's just a collective phase we're all going through. I do believe we are connected with everything. Like, I feel real connected to the nuggets for some reason. But are we engulfed in infinity? Do you feel we are engulfed in infinity? You know, the Greeks wrestled with this question a lot. Plato had a major position about this. He concluded that the rules of math, 1 + 1 = 2, the circumference of a circle is radius times 2 pi, these are not conventions just made up by man, but realities that exist outside the minds of man, that man is merely discovering them. For Plato, abstractions do exist. The Platonic ideals of love, justice, truth, the idea of trees, of oceans, of hands, of fingers, these categories don't just merely exist in their individual concrete forms. They exist as perfect categories, and man merely discovers them. Another thing that man discovers after a while is that women don't like being called men. Right?
Right.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear you. We're still working on that. We're still working on it. Now, I don't want to be a party pooper, but I'm going to take the opposite position as Pascal and say, we are not engulfed in infinity. This is controversial. We might be engulfed in national debt. We might be drowning in partisan politics. But who's with me? I'm going to disagree with Plato too. I think infinity is an abstraction. And I think abstractions only exist in people's imaginations. Who's with me? Yeah, no, people have mixed feelings about that. It's called cognitive dissonance. Anyway, learning how to think more abstractly is very high on my bucket list. Baruch Spinoza was one of the greatest philosophers of Europe. Was the only person to stand up to Descartes in that time. He was an unbridled wild child. He was a Sagittarius, which explains everything. He lived in Amsterdam in the early 17th century. First, he was a great theologian who was offered a top rabbinic position by age 20, and then he left the rabbinic fold and became one of the great secular philosophers of his time. He was excommunicated by the chief rabbis for being a secular philosophy by age 23, but then he turned down the highest chair position in the philosophy department to start grinding lenses with the Dutch lens grinders of the early 1600s. This is where the first lenses for the first microscopes and reading glasses and telescopes were created. One thing most people don't know about Baruch is he seldom had a problem with phlegm being stuck in the back of his throat. One of these first telescopes was sent to Galileo in Italy. That's when he saw the moons of Jupiter, orbiting Jupiter for the first time, which was very exciting, but also marked the beginning of the end of his bromance with the Pope, who eventually locked him up. Right around the same time, within just a few years, the Dutch astronomer Ole Romer also looked up to the sky and saw through one of the first telescopes from an observatory in Paris the moons of Jupiter orbiting around it for the first time. Max, if you would please show us what these two gentlemen saw when they looked through humankind's first telescopes. 4 moons appeared right on the same plane. They always go behind and this is sped up a little bit, by the way. But actually, they go pretty fast. Is that right? I mean, the moons of Jupiter are cruising. Yeah. This is real time. Let me get ready for my next line. Okay, we don't have patience. People have dinner plans, Max. Come on. Romer, who can only see 4 out of how many moons does Jupiter have in total? Nobody knows. Okay, well, I can't hear you. 69? Oh, how prophetic. Okay, yeah, I will never forget again. So, what Romer started doing, I imagine, in the streets of Paris was strutting around going, I can tell you exactly when the moon is going to appear from behind Saturn. Now, they only saw 4 back then. So he would look and he would say, right now. And they're like, wow, man. He started making side bets. He started kind of charming the ladies in town a little bit, getting cocky. He knew when that moon was going to show up right behind the face of Jupiter. But as time went on, his predictions started being wrong. He was saying, right now, and it would be like a second later. Right now, oh my God. He started losing money. He started getting depressed. Started drinking wine. So what is going on? I'm sure that the moons are not changing their speed. They're always going around Jupiter at the same speed. Why do they appear to be appearing from behind Jupiter later and later as the season is going on? And he realized in one of the better moments of his life, and for which he is known now by you, that he realized that Jupiter was moving further away from Earth as time was going on. And so light was having to travel a longer distance to reach their eyes. And since Aristotle, civilization believed that light was spontaneously filling everywhere. And now they realize it moves at a certain speed. And he calculated, without an iPad, without an Excel spreadsheet, just using the flip phone calculator that he had. He calculated the speed of light to within 5% of what it really is. Pretty good for a guy with roosters crowing all around his feet. Okay, maybe it was within 10%. I mean, actually, I looked it up. He was within 25% of what it was, but that's not a good story. So that is how we discovered the speed of light, and now you know that story. Max, I'm going to suggest that we leave Earth and travel for a little while at the speed of light. Would you all join me on that? Yeah? Little light speed. Might get a little lightheaded. Let's see what it's like to cross a little bit of space at the speed of light. God, I wish Einstein could be here right now. This is getting a little... Max, let's go 3 times the speed of light. Okay, let's pick this up. Oh man, how anticlimactic is that? Okay, Max, let's go 100 times the speed of light. Oh, that's big. It's lonely out there, kids. It is lonely. Get married. Be well adjusted. Okay, now we are moving at, is this 100?
Sorry, I should have taken about 30 seconds.
Okay. That's okay. Light must be very lonely. Light, too, must be wondering, is it real or not? How would you feel if you were an object that had no mass? How would you feel if you were forever suspended in one moment of time, forever, never able to step out of it, never able to feel the march of time, never able to connect with other light beams your age? Because they never catch up with you, and you can never catch up with them. I think Einstein felt lonely as a light beam sometimes. I think Galileo felt lonely as a light beam too. You see, light exists in an infinitesimally small prison, stuck in the present moment. No past, no future. Light itself is without beginning and without end. It is the absolute against which everything else in the universe, including time and space, are relative. It's got to be lonely at the top. I saw the light just a few weeks ago on my way back home to Louisville. funny though, it wasn't just one light. There were several. And funny, they weren't white, which I thought was strange. They were red and blue. This next song is about the planet Saturn.
Everybody wants a little thing or two, and everybody wants a piece of action too.
You know, I think Einstein felt lonely as a light beam. I think Galileo felt lonely too. You see, light exists in an infinitesimally small prison, stuck in the present moment. No past, no future. You know, I saw the light just a few weeks ago on my way back home to Louisville. Funny, it wasn't just one, there were several. And they weren't white, which I thought was strange. They were red and blue.
Everybody wants a little thing or two, and everybody wants a piece of action too.
My little Life on Other Planet ditty. So, the Chinese say, "Wo bu tai hao qing chu," which means something approximating, a good fence makes good neighbors. Right? Well, I think in the space age, it's time for us to agree that many light years of distance makes good neighbors. Okay? What I mean by that, and this is after studying the issue of the possibility of life in other star systems. And Max, why don't we slowly let's just go like 1,000 times the speed of light and make our way out of the Milky Way. After studying this issue about life on other planets very carefully, I've come to 3 conclusions that we absolutely have to make. Ooh, yeah. I want to see where we're going first. Yes. Perfect. Oop, there we go. This is 1,000? Could be 500. But I think this is a little more satisfying. People have dinner plans. This is just the galaxy. There's 3 conclusions that we just have to draw about this. One is there's a lot of life all over the Milky Way, and I'm going to explain the math in a minute. 2, we are never going to encounter each other face to face. The distances are just too far. And 3, Aerosmith is still the greatest rock and roll band of all time. You think it's the Stones, but it's not. It's Aerosmith. Okay, so let's do some math. In the Milky Way, there are an estimated 400 billion stars. Okay, I'm just going to give you a second to hang with that number. 400 billion stars just in our average galaxy. That's 50 stars for every human on Earth right now. So you all got 50. What are you going to do? Don't spend it all in one place. Now, if just 1 in a million had advanced life forms and advanced civilizations, 1 in a million, if you can even comprehend that, there would be 400,000 planets with advanced life just here in the Milky Way. That's 1 for every car trying to cross Boulder at 5 p.m. on an average Tuesday. Okay, this is going to take a while, Max. Why don't you pick it up just a little bit more? I wish you were here now, Albert. So let me ask you a question. Here's another pop quiz. Do most stars in the Milky Way have planetary systems? Okay. Yeah. You know what? They almost all do. Almost every star that's been observed has planets. So and when conditions are right, a little bit of nitrogen, a little oxygen, maybe a bottle of wine. Biotic life just wants to happen. You almost can't stop it. But when we listen for the sign of intelligence from another planet that the galaxy is silent. We don't hear anything. Well, let's look at it this way. It takes light 100,000 years to cross the galaxy. I said it was big. So even if we send information out at the speed of light, which we do with radio waves, it would take 100,000 years to reach the other side. Yeah. So you can imagine them calling with a cell phone. Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now? And by the time we get their answer, 200,000 years later, we're going to forget what the question was. It's like Snapchat. I'll bet most of you don't use Snapchat. We might not even speak the same language we spoke when we first asked the question. So people are of mixed opinion also. People are of mixed opinion of whether we should be making ourselves known. What do we want to say to those people anyway? Hey, Rocket Man, our sun might be a wimpy yellow dwarf star, but it burns 600 million tons of hydrogen per second in its core. Yeah, 600 million tons of hydrogen per second. And it can beat the heck out of your honor roll red giant. You know, something I thought about preparing for this show is the fact that, well, the Big Bang, the biggest, most amazing, explosive beginning of all time and space, only two elements were formed. Hydrogen and helium. I mean, that's weird. That never sat well with me. I thought we were talking about the Big Bang. I thought that was like the biggest, hottest, most explosive, bangiest bang of all time. Wasn't that not the bang to end all bangs? But only hydrogen and helium? Like the two wimpiest elements? Like we're supposed to be impressed. And one thing that distinguishes Earth from other planets in our solar system is our surface keeps recycling and churning up new land masses while burying the old. Volcanic activity is the way the Earth keeps growing fresh new land masses out of the guts of its core and burying the old. I hear that's happening on the Big Island right now. The Earth isn't really flat like people say, but the Earth is flatulent. Yeah, the Earth is flatulent. I'm one of the founders of the Flatulent Earth movement. Unremitting flatulence is also responsible for 4 out of the 11 mass extinctions that have occurred in the past 3 billion years. It also destroyed my first marriage. Between meteors and volcanoes, both periodically creating massive extinction events and loss of biodiversity, it would almost seem like the creator of all of this just likes to hit the reset button periodically. Now, you can cry about that all you want, but it has worked to our advantage. As you know, for the entire 150 million years that the Earth was cooler and dinosaurs ruled, mammals were a pretty wimpy and unknown species. There weren't that many of us, and we scurried around at night, scared most of the time. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, for millions of years, it was like, honey, are they still out there? Yep. What are we going to have for dinner? Just a few leafy greens. But finally, after 150 million years of being, let's face it, nobodies, after 150 million years of playing second fiddle to a bunch of cold-blooded, pea-brained bullies, one day, 66 million years ago, and their loss was our gain, the big meteor came, and it landed over the wall in Mexico, in the Yucatan. And from out of the blackness, it struck down in a sudden ball of fire and took down the enormous animals that ruled the earth for so long. In a matter of 2-3 years, a dust cloud formed that lasted decades, and the climate shifted, and 75% of the species of their time were wiped out forever. Now, a lot of us say we love biodiversity, but you don't hear too many people cry about that extinction, do you? No, we needed them gone so we could take their land and build the 29th Street Mall. Their demise paved the way for your Saturday night out in Boulder. This town just wasn't big enough for both of us. Now, a little warming has been just perfect for us. But we live in an era of rapid climate warming, real rapid, like on a scale never seen before. And climate change is going to make the world a lot more habitable for a lot of species. Now, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but I think the Earth performs a little more optimally, just a little bit warmer than it is. So it's going to make the Earth a greener place. And the last time the Earth warmed up, tropical forests spread all the way up to the border of Manitoba. There were leafy greens everywhere, and plenty of ants to eat them. So there's going to be winners and losers, friends. It's going to be great for ferns. You're not going to hear any ferns crying. And palm trees and banana trees. It's going to be great for cockroaches. Did you know that there are 350,000 different kinds of cockroaches? What's going on? They're going to be dancing in the street. And it's just not going to be great for a lot of the mammals. And a host of other critters. The oceans aren't going to like it that much. But I've looked at the various climate models out there, and they show the areas that may get wetter and greener as a result of climate change, and the areas that are going to get drier and browner. And I've looked at Colorado pretty closely in a number of these models, and you can see Colorado is right on the cusp. In a lot of the models, Colorado is at the very, very bottom of this lush green area that stretches across the upper Midwest and across the Great Lakes. And in other models, Colorado is right at the top of a big brown area that stretches all the way down to California and over the wall into Mexico. So we don't know which way it's going to go here. This is true. Boulder's right at the crossroads. I think that's why they called it Crossroads Mall. But property values in North Boulder are going to, don't worry. Property values in North Boulder are going to keep going up in either case. For a while, Longmont's probably going to do really good the next few years. Louisville's going to start maxing out soon, but call me if you're even thinking about selling after the show. Now, for an advanced civilization on any planet, not just for any planet, to last for thousands and thousands and maybe even millions of years, there are some growing pains. It has to learn how to do 3 things. Not destroy its own nest with pollution and waste. 2, learn how to defend itself against incoming asteroids and comets. And 3, learn how to stop looking at their smartphones. And that's where we're failing. This next song is called Mankind Was Here.
Mankind was here. You can see the roads of his time transmitting in the desert sand where he once lived.
Thank you very much. 98% of all species that have ever lived have gone extinct. That's sad, and it actually pisses me off because biological diversity and healthy ecosystems are the greatest expression of life in the universe. And you know who I partially blame for it? No, not Paul Manafort. No, not Paris Hilton. That's what you were thinking. And I don't blame Google, Facebook, or Tinder either. I mean, Tinder's partially responsible, but I blame Jupiter. What? Jupiter. Why Jupiter? Because asteroids banging into the Earth are responsible for some of the largest extinction events in the Earth's history. And one of Jupiter's jobs in the solar system as the largest orb out there is to be the solar system's vacuum cleaner. Jupiter is supposed to absorb and attract most of the asteroids and comets with its massive size. Jupiter is our first defense against asteroids, and apparently it doesn't always do its job well enough. I mean, on the other hand, if Jupiter weren't there at all, we'd probably get our clocks cleaned every few thousand years. There'd be no us. I mean, let's look at the data. Max, can you show me that graph that shows the asteroids that we knew about starting in about 1975? This is amazing. And the thing to marvel at here is that in 1981, we were aware of 10,000 asteroids that we were able to identify and see. You can see the numbers going up every year. By 1984, there were 11,500. Now, you see the Earth is the third one from the sun. The red asteroids are the ones that are crossing the Earth's orbit. And there's a lot of them. And we keep finding them, and we keep finding them. And so the question isn't if we're going to get nailed again. The question is when. Let's just keep watching this, because we were pretty naive in 1975 about how many we thought there were. There's more and more and more that we're finding every day. And the red ones are crossing the Earth's orbit. So Jupiter, which is the fifth ring, is not catching enough of them. And it's just a matter of time before Earth gets nailed by another big asteroid. So scientists say there's two kinds of civilizations in the world, in the universe. There are those that learn how to protect themselves from an eventual asteroid collision, and those that don't. So maybe, and this is a big maybe, and please don't get me stoned if you disagree, but just maybe, all this money that we've poured into space exploration and national defense and aeronautics, maybe it will end up giving us the technology we need to save ourselves from a cataclysmic collision in the next 20,000 years. Because we are overdue. Is that right? We are overdue. Right, Max? How overdue are we? 15 million years. So just be careful as you're going back to your car. You know, we actually recently landed a space vehicle on a comet that was moving 35,000 miles per hour in space. Pretty impressive, so I'm proud of those guys. By the way, most of the water on Earth came from early comets pelting us during the formation of the solar system, so think about that the next time you take a shower. I'm showering on a comet. It's a comet. Well, I want to just wrap up by saying, folks, I spent about 3 weeks preparing for the show. And in that time, the universe expanded by a little over 336 trillion miles. I don't know what it's expanding into. That's going to be one of the topics in my next show, Real Space Has Curves. But it is moving, and we are moving. The Earth's motion around the sun is the least of it, really. The sun is also hurtling through the Milky Way. The Milky Way is also spinning around its center, and it's also hurtling through space towards its neighbors, which we will soon have a collision with, but probably not before you're done with your dinner tonight. In 3 weeks, in the past 3 weeks, the Earth has moved through 225 million miles of real space. Wrap your mind around that. We're moving about 1 million miles a day. according to the calculations I did with the calculator on my flip phone. So, and just between this snap of my finger and that one, Bitcoin just went up by 14%. Now, some of you are going to need your parking tickets validated after the show. Some of you are going to need your entire existence validated. In either case, please see me out front. I want to thank Max for being our captain, and Tito and Carla, if either of you are here. If you're here, thank you for helping in all the ways that you did. Tom Hanks is actually here, everyone, but I cut that 10 minutes out of the show. But he'll be with me up front. I want to end by a quote by Walt Whitman. Just give you something to go home with. But before I do, I just want to say to you, thank you for coming tonight. Yeah. I am sorry for being a little glued to my notes, but soon, I promise, we will have the show fully developed. I will go off script, and tickets will cost $30. If you didn't like my show, by the way, you're going to love my book. It's coming out. It's called Letting Go Is All We Have to Hold On To. It's going to be available on Amazon way before the next asteroid hits. It's funny. It's also for people who are in recovery from the self-help industry. Let's make sure we've got your email address on the way out. And thank you again. But this is what dear Walt Whitman said. This is what you shall do. Love the earth and the sun and the animals. Despise riches. Give alms to everyone that asks. Hate tyrants. Argue not concerning God. Stand up for the stupid and crazy. Thank you very much. Have patience and indulgence towards the people. Take off your hat to nothing known or unknown, or to any man or any number of men. Go freely with powerful, uneducated persons, and with the young, and with the mothers of families. Read these leaves in the open air every season of every year of your life. Re-examine all you've been told in school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem. Thank you, everybody, very much for coming tonight. Thank you very much. Even the earth is bipolar. For people who are in no shape for the human condition, for the human race. Hi, you're here. So those that need their parking tickets validated, come first. Those that you need your whole lives validated, hang back because you're going to take a little bit longer. But thank you again, everybody. Ow!